Hey, what's up, guys? Mr. McCullough here, and I am not 100% sure I'm going to make it to every class on Friday. So I decided to do something fun and teach a subject that we didn't get around to first semester, but it's a very important topic. So we're probably just going to touch on it for a day, and it's probably not going to be stuff you're tested on, but it's stuff that if you code, you will find super useful, super essential. And that thing that I'm talking about is called lists. So we're just going to take a 1 day deviation into lists that I think you will appreciate. So let's get to it. I'm going to share my screen. Go screen two. And there we go. So go to your sandbox. It's gonna be a code along lecture, and you're gonna want to create a new program. You probably want to create a new folder, actually. Called lists. See my folder called lists? So you probably want to make that folder and then make another file called list lecture. I'm going to do what I normally do, which is since I'm going to replicate what's in list lecture, basically, I'm just going to make one called junk, but yours should be called list lecture. There it is. That's what you want to do. And I'll click create program. We just need a basic Python 3. There you go. And now we have created it. And this is what we start with. Junk, get rid of what's in there, and we're going to start from scratch. Okay. So, the topic is lists. So let's do what we do. Let's go to the little top comment indicating what we're working with. Lists are used to store multiple items in a single variable. What does that look like? Well, if we did it, say, with strings, we made a list entirely of strings. It might be something like this. We might make a list of pet types. And so that's going to be, we'll do cat, a dog, and what's a third pet? Sure, monkey. Somewhere someone owns a monkey, I'm sure. So there it is. That's what a list looks like. You indicate all of the members, enclosing them in square brackets with a comma in between each item, right? And so it could be strings, as we'll see. You can use other data types. You can even mix data types, but there's not really too many applications for doing that, certainly none that we're going to talk about. So generally speaking, a list is going to contain a whole bunch of data of the same type. Here we have strings. Okay, so how is it helpful to have one common name for multiple data items, right? How are we able to extract a single item if they all have the same name? Well, we do that. We can pull a single item within a list. First, let's give a name to that, right? A single item within the list, so like cat or dog or monkey, one of those individual items is known as an element. And we can access a single element with the name of the list plus an index, right, which is an integer number in square brackets. So what does that look like? Let's just print. We'll put a little sentence here. The best pet is a comma. And here I'm going to reference my first item in this list. And so I say pets, and then I do my square brackets, And I want to reference the first one. The best pet is a cat. Okay, controversial. Don't worry, I got more information to provide. Is a cat, comma, that behaves like a comma, and then to reference the second item in the list, right? Note we do that thing that we do in programming where we start counting at zero. So the first item, cat, we have to say pet zero, which means to get the second item, it's going to be pets index one, right? This is true if you've ever been lucky enough to have a cat that behaves like a dog, that is the best pet. So let's see if we can get that to print. There it is. The best pet is a cat that behaves like a dog. All right, so again, pet zero, name of the list, plus an index gives you an element. All right, what else can we do with lists? Um, there are there are reasons why you might want to know the length of a list. So we can get the length with the function len, like this. Let's make a variable num pets, indicating the number of types of pets that there are, is assigned the value of len. That's a function. And the argument that we pass in is the array that will say len pets. And then we can print types of pets, colon. Okay, let's leave the space out, was comma, num pets, and that will tell us that there are three types of pets, at least in our list, there are three. Okay, we'll see len again momentarily. So we've seen how you get the first item in a list, right? The first item is always going to have that index of zero. So here's a question. How last item a list? Question mark. Yeah, it's a question to you. So let's take a minute. I'll sit here awkwardly while you try to print out the last element in the list. How do we do it? Take a moment. I'm going to count down 60 seconds. See if you can do it in 60. All right, I think that's about 60 seconds. So there's two ways to get the last item, and one you might have been able to figure out based on this, right? We are able to find the length of the list. And if we know the length, for example, if we know that the length is 3, then we know that the last element actually isn't going to be 3, right? Because we do that crazy count by zero thing. So the last element is going to have an index of the length minus 1, right? To reference pets, to reference monkey, we'd have to say pets index 2, even though the length is 3. So how can do that. Let's do print um, illegal pet, because it is. Don't try to get one. Don't say I told you to get one. And um, we want to say the name of our array, pets, and our index. We're going to put a little math in those square brackets. We're going to say the length of pets, right, which is going to give us 3, but 3 is going to be out of bounds. In fact, let's see what that looks like, right? If we try to reference an element that doesn't exist, for example, pets sub 3, which would be hanging out here, what is that going to do? Very curious. Okay, there it is. Look at that error. List index out of range. That's what that means. You'll get that error a lot. It happens, right? If you count 1 too far, you go beyond the limit, beyond the last value in that list, and that's a problem. So we'll be smart about it. We'll say whatever the length is, we need 1 below that as our last element. And so if we do that, we get that the illegal pet is the monkey. Okay, and there's a streamlined way to do that too. I want you to see this, the use of the length function in order to figure out how to get that last index number. But you can also do the thing. Let's just repeat that. Illegal pet. And the index numbers, as we saw briefly when we were talking about strings before, if you're doing the index of a value, you can start at the end by giving a negative number. So if we give -1, it's going to start at the back of the array and count 1 backwards, which should also give us monkey. So now we should see that same message twice. Illegal pet monkey, illegal pet monkey. Fantastic. Don't get a monkey. I'm going to comment this out. Comment this. Contain my pets list at the top. Let's see. All right, so lists are super useful in conjunction with for loops, which is why I think I decided to slip this lesson in right now as we are kind of wrapping up our formal work with for loops. So if we wanted to, for example, print every item in our list, every element, we could say for I in range, and we want range to count from 0 to 2, right? To count every valid index in our list. So we can do that by saying len pets, right? Length of pets, the value is 3, but we know that if we call on range, range counts from 0 to 1 less than this number. So it will give us 0, 1, 2, which is exactly what we want, right? 0, 1, 2. So the logic of counting by 0 is hopefully starting to be apparent to you, right? 0, 1, 2 is the valid indexes. And so when we pass in a 3, we get 0, 1, and 2 from range, right? So we can do that, and we can just print, and we would need to say pets, and our index is just going to be that value of I. That's our counting variable. So we can get all 3 of my pets listed, cat, dog, and monkey, doing that. Again, there's an alternate way, a slightly more elegant way, in which you don't really need to reference the position at all. You could also just say for pet in pets. And this just says basically for every element in the, we want to go through every element in the array, right? If you know that you want every value, then you don't have to be concerned about indexes. You just give a name that is going to be applied to each individual element in the array. Sorry, I'm saying array. For the purposes of this lecture, array and list can be considered the same thing. But I'll try to be good and I'll try to say list. So we print pet. Each pet should be on its own line like we saw before. And that's another way to print every item in the list. All right. So we've seen how to instantiate a new array, right? But what if we decide that, yeah, actually there's more types of pets than cat, dog, and monkey? How can we do that? Let's slide up before our for loop here, and let's append a new item to the list. Append is the method that we call on from the array to add a new value. So I'm going to say pets dot append. What's a good pet that we haven't mentioned yet? Some people like ferrets. Weird, but okay. So if you do append and then your argument, the thing that you put in parentheses, is the new string that we want to add. So if you do pets.append, ferret will be added to the end of the list. And there it is. Now when we print each item, that's what we get. And by the way, this is us setting up a for loop that prints each value on its own line. If you want to just like print the array directly, this is what that's going to look like. You just print pets, printing the array directly, and it shows this, right? It shows the square. It indicates that it's an array by showing the square brackets, puts each of the items separated by commas. And interestingly, it changes our double quotes to single quotes. Okay. All right. Let's close out this example with pets. I'm going to comment that out because I want to illustrate that lists are not limited to strings. Any data type can be put into a list. Let's do list of integers. And let's come up with something maybe a little bit useful. We'll say primes is assigned the value of square bracket array 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. That should be enough. And we can do 4. Again, the trick is, do we want to print every number? If the answer is yes, then we don't need to worry about the indexes. We can just say for num in primes and just print num. So we do that, and each of these values should be printed on its own line, just like that. So having seen that, let me pose a challenge to you. Question mark, question mark. Calculate the sum of all elements in primes. Take a moment. See if you can figure out how to do that. Okay, let's take a peek at a solution. First thing is, if you're generating a sum, always good to start with a variable. We can call it sum. And now that we have that sum, our goal is to go through every value. So we can do for num in primes. And now in the same way that we just printed the number 4, now our goal is to add it to the sum, right? So we can say sum is assign the value of sum plus num. And that should do it in terms of generating the value, right? Go through every one of these values in turn and add it to sum. So in the end, we can just print sum, right? And let's go ahead and comment out all of this. And yeah, let's put a little context in too. Let's just say sum. Sum comma sum. Is 18, which sounds correct. That's 11, 18. Good. Okay, so enjoy this day. Giving you this lecture, and I'm giving you a set of coding backlinks. Remember coding back? You sure you're logged in so that you change your look as you go. But there are 4 good, I think, achievable coding back questions for you to answer. Feel free to collaborate with teammates, right? Um, Feel free to look at the solutions for the ones that have solutions after you have struggled mightily, right? Like, okay, if you put in again 10 minutes and you haven't figured it out, that's a good time to look at the solutions. But really try by the end of the day to have an understanding of a solution to all 4 of the exercises. If you need to lean on your classmates a bit to get there by the end, great. But work hard to come up with your own solution. That's the way that you will remember how to do it. Okay, that's me. Signing off. Thanks for your attention. Peace.